What's up, y'all? In this video, I'll go over my full beat making process on the Lofi-12 XT. Sonicware recently released a firmware update for the XT, version 1.5, so I wanted to give a fresh perspective of how I make beats in the box. But if you're looking for a full list of changes that Sonicware made in version 1.5, check out the quick guide video I made for them on their page. Alright, let's get to it. Let's start by recording in a melodic sample to chop. I have this sample on my phone that I want to record to the Lofi-12 XT. And recording over USB is super easy. You just have to have a cable that can connect from the Lofi-12 XT to your phone. So here I have a USB-C to USB-C cable. I'll connect one end to this adapter. It has a Type-C port on one side, then the USB micro port on the other, so it'll go into the Lofi-12 XT. And then the other side of the USB cable I'll connect to my phone. You can get to the record screen by holding function and then pressing the record button. Then I'll select USB as my input source with the A knob. And I'll press the pad I want to record into, the track 1 pad. Since I'm in threshold recording mode, I can press the pad again to arm the recording, and then play the sample from my phone. Now that I have the sample in the Lofi-12 XT, there are a few settings I want to change. First, I'll turn velocity sensitivity off by going to the voice screen of the sound page and pushing down the D knob to bring this value down to 0. This means that no matter how hard or softly I press the pad, the sample will always play at full volume, which can work well for sample chops. I'm also going to turn 12-bit mode off by turning the C knob. This effect can make sounds louder and punchier. It's great for drums, but not what I'm going for with this melodic sample. Now let's get slicing. From the voice screen, I'll use the A knob to change the play mode to slice. Then I'll use the right auxiliary button to enter the slice screen. There are a few slice modes on the Lofi-12 XT, but generally I use the manual chop mode. This makes it so that you can listen to the sample and as it's playing, input slice markers by pressing the pads. I'm happy with those slices, so I'll back out of this page and press the pad button to get to the pad screen. From here, I'll turn the B knob to change the edit setting from each to all. With this set to all, any changes I make on this screen will apply to all the slices, so I'll turn the A knob once to add all the slices to a single choke group, group 1, which means that the pads will cut each other off instead of overlapping as I play them. Alright, let's record into sequence. First, I'll go to the config page and make the pattern 64 steps, or 4 bars, by turning the A knob. And I'll change the tempo by pressing down the value knob to get to the tempo screen. From here, I'll turn the A knob to bring the tempo down to 91 BPM. Now I'll press the record button, and then press play to start the count in and play a sequence. And then before I forget, I'll turn off the metronome by pressing down the value knob to get to the tempo screen, and then pushing down the C knob. Let's add some drums next. The Firmware 1.5 update came with some cool new sounds, including a sample pack from legendary beatmaker DiBiase. So let's use some sounds from that. You can load new samples by selecting an empty track, and then pressing down the A knob to get to the file browser. This pool screen will show all the samples that you have saved in all the different folders on the SD card, but you can press the left auxiliary button to get to the Browse menu, and from here you can select individual folders. So I'll open up the folder with the DiBiase samples. And you can preview sounds by pressing left on the D-pad. And then once you've selected the sample you want, you press Menu, and then Load Selected. and I'll record in an open hi-hat as well. Now that I've got the sounds picked, I'm going to do some resampling so I have all the sounds on a single track. That way I won't need to burn 4 tracks for the rhythm section and can keep that space open for other samples. The first thing I need to do to resample this is add a note to the sequence on each track so each sound plays once. And the notes need to have some space between them so they're easy to slice. So I'll input a note for each sound on the quarter notes. You can add notes to the sequence by holding the pad down, then pressing the numbered step button down where you want it to trigger. Another good tactic for resampling is disabling the attack release or attack sustain release envelope on the sounds, so the sample plays all the way through in the recording. You can turn off the envelope by going to the amp page and then pressing the right auxiliary button. And I also want the recordings to have the samples at full volume, so I'll disable velocity sensitivity the same way that I did with the sample chops by pressing down the D knob from the sound page. And I'll mute the melodic sample since I just want the drum samples in this resample chain. Now I'm ready to resample. I'll hold function and press record to get to the sampling screen, and then I'll change the input source to resample by turning the A knob all the way to the right. By default, the resample input will only be listening for a single track, so to capture multiple tracks, you need to turn the C knob all the way to the right until it says master. And now I can arm the recording by selecting a pad to record to, and then press the pad again to activate the recording, which will start the sequence. Nice, so now the kick, snare, closed hat, and open hat are all on a single pad, the pad for track 6. I just need to slice the recording, and then I can play and sequence all the sounds from a single pad. And let's do some quick housekeeping with the tracks. Since I don't need these tracks with the individual drum sounds anymore, I can clear them by holding the clear button and pressing the trackpad. And then in this window, I'll select all to clear everything from the track. I also want to move this drum track over to the left, next to the melodic sample. So I'll copy the track by holding the copy button down, then selecting the trackpad. And I'll paste the track by holding the copy button down, then selecting the track I want to paste it to, track 2. And I'll clear the copy buffer by holding clear and pressing the copy button. With that out of the way, let's record in a sequence. I'll change the length of this sequence to 32 steps, or 2 bars, from the config page. Then I'll arm the sequence for recording by pressing record, and then play. One thing I like to do with the rhythm section is layer some additional percussion. Usually I try to find a percussion loop or a drum break that fits nicely under the one-shots. So I'm going to record in this jazz, shuffle break drum section, and then slice it up. I recorded this sample pitched up, and now that I have it on the Lofi-12 XT, I want to pitch it back down. So from the sound page, if you hold the function button down and then press down the B knob, it activates this semitone pitch mode, where each turn of the knob will change the pitch by 1 semitone. Alright, let's get slicing. Once I've got the sample chops in the rhythm section sorted out, I generally add a bassline next. One of the really cool things about the Lofi-12 XT is that you can play single cycle waveforms with it, which allows you to use it like a wavetable synthesizer. So I'm going to use a basic wave shape for the bass sound, a triangle wave. If you want to know where I found these single cycle waveforms, check out the linked video. With the waveform loaded, I just need to enable the loop playback mode by pressing the right auxiliary button. I also want to put a low pass filter on this so it's not so buzzy. So I'll go to the filter page by pressing down the filter button, then I'll use the B knob to change the filter type to low pass, and I'll adjust the cutoff frequency with the A knob until it sounds smooth. While we're messing with filters, I'm also going to add a high pass filter to the sample chops to clear up some space in the lower frequencies for the bass. Alright, we're almost ready to record this bass line. The last thing I want to do is enable the scale mode on the bass track to make it easier to play notes in key with the melody. To get to the scale settings, press the pad button while on the sound page. I know the melodic sample I'm using is in the key of A minor, and I pitched it down 3 semitones, which would make it in the key of F minor. So I'll change the root note to F with the D knob, and then I'll change the scale to minor with the A knob. Now all the notes I play will be in key, although keep in mind this only works if your sample, in this case my triangle wave, is tuned to the key of C. Okay, let's record in some notes. I'll start by recording a 2-bar sequence. Although the sample chops are a 4-bar sequence, so I want to extend the pattern out and add a few different notes to play in the 4th bar. So I'll go to the config page, and then I'll hold function and turn the A knob to duplicate the 32 steps into a 64-step sequence, same as the sample chops. And now I can play in some new notes at the end. There's not a way to loop a specific range of steps in the sequence, but there is a handy shortcut for starting playback of the pattern later in the sequence. You just have to hold the numbered step button down for the step you want to start playback from, then press the play button. You'll also notice that some of the notes get cut off abruptly at the end of the 2-bar and 4-bar section. The reason why they're getting cut off is because the recording stopped when the sequence reached its end and cycled back to the beginning. And so you can parameter lock a longer release by going to the amp page to bring up the envelope, then holding the numbered step button down, and then turning the B knob, which will change the release of the note on that step. With the basic elements added, now I'll look for some other melodic sounds to add to the beat to give it more texture. got all the sounds I want in the arrangement, so now I'll use the mix page to adjust the levels. From here you can see the volume meters for all the tracks in the pattern as it's playing. And you can bring sounds up or down by selecting a track with a D-pad, then turning the A knob. And there are some additional mixing tools in the Master Effects section, which you can access by pressing the left auxiliary button from the mix page. Some of these are performance effects, but some are good for mixing. Let's mess around with the isolator. And once you're finished working on your beat, it's a good idea to save both the pattern and the project. You can save the pattern by holding Function and pressing the Pattern button. And you can save the project, which is a collection of patterns, by holding the Function button, then pressing the Pad button. And on this screen, select Save. So that's my full beat making process on the Lofi-12 XT. It's pretty similar to previous firmware versions, but the 1.5 update does make things a little bit quicker. Enhancements like being able to add all slices to a choke group, being able to start playback of the pattern later in the sequence, and some visual references when editing notes in step edit mode. Well, that does it for this video. Thanks for watching, see you next time.